You're listening to She's the Business podcast. How does somebody who calls herself a nonpreneur start a business and double her corporate salary within 2 years without using Facebook ads, launches, or even having a big social media audience? Well, that's the story that I've got coming up for you today. So if you've been thinking, wow, there's all these things that I need to have before I have a successful business, I think today's story will demonstrate to you just how untrue that is and what you can do if you actually just get on and do it. Now, Kristy, my guest, shares with us exactly, where she came from and the major challenges she had to overcome in even becoming the nonpreneur that she calls herself. So if you'd like to listen in and get some of that inspiration, then please stay tuned. It's coming right up. Hi, I'm your host, Jessica Osborne, and in my 23 years of business and marketing, I've built many brands to become multi-billion-dollar companies. And just in the last 10 years, I've built 2 online businesses of my own from my dining room table with 2 little babies running around at my feet. I've made it my mission to inspire you to get out of your own way and become the successful business owner who's living the lifestyle you really desire without all the hustle. This is She's the Business podcast, made by women for women. This is your weekly dose of motivation and inspiration. Today, I've got a very special guest joining me on the podcast. I asked Kristy Wright to share her story with us, and because Kristy actually works for me. She has been running her own business for 2 years, providing digital marketing and organic marketing services to small businesses in the region. And she's been working with me for the past 9 months on my social media, my websites, helping support my launches. And she's somebody who I feel like a lot of us can relate to because she went through the journey of being the career person and thinking that was the end goal and what she always wanted, and having that real employee mindset to almost becoming an accidental entrepreneur. And she actually calls herself a nonpreneur. She still doesn't even put herself in those shoes of an entrepreneur, even though not even 2 years in, she's already doubled her corporate salary. So I asked her to come on here today and share her story and her journey with you, because I feel like there's a lot of insights that we can all gain from listening to what it was that she went through, how she lifted herself out of it, and, really how she set up a very simple and very successful business, almost without even trying. So wouldn't we all love a bit of that? Now, without further ado, let me play the interview for you. Okay, and welcome. We're here today with Kristy Wright, who is actually somebody who works with me in my business. And I asked her to come on the podcast with me today because she's got a really amazing story to share of, really her career and life and how it's changed and molded by, some events that are outside of our control as well, but how she's managed to come full circle and bring it back, and everything that she's learnt along the way. So welcome, Kristy. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here and talking to everybody. I usually like to be behind the scenes, doing all the magic and getting all the things sorted. So it's a big step for me to kind of come out from behind the curtain.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thanks for agreeing to share your story with us. Really appreciate it. So do you want to tell us a bit about, I guess, what you do now, but then we'll go right back to your career, like what you actually were qualified in and what you've started out doing?
So I suppose like most women, do a lot of different things. I've got a lot of different hats that I wear, but mostly it's in organic content. So digital marketing and organic content. So my background's in writing, and I work for myself. It's been a bit of a journey. I like to call myself a nonpreneur, entrepreneurial, or that entrepreneur spirit doesn't come easily to me.
Mm-hmm.
But I have kind of found a way around that. It's been a huge learning curve, and I've been on a journey. So that's what I'm going to share today.
Awesome. So yes, you got a degree and you were living in Sydney. Is that where you grew up? Yeah.
So I started my university degree is actually in print journalism. And it's funny because it's, as we know it, print journalism is kind of no longer around. So I suppose you can work out my age from that. And yeah, so then I went on to work for a magazine in Sydney, and then on to working in a university where I'd promote the research. So working with academics and promoting all the peer-reviewed research, and I really loved that. And then I decided to blow up my career and have a baby, and it wasn't actually as easy as that. I had a daughter that passed before I went on to have my son, and I then within 4 months I was pregnant with my son, and I step out of onto maternity leave, and then my ex-partner and I decided that we'd go and move states. So just to make things a little bit more interesting, we moved up to the Sunshine Coast, which is where I live today. And that was for family reasons that we moved up here. And
did you feel like at the time it was blowing up your career, or is that sort of an insight of now looking back?
I actually have a way worse way to describe it. I actually call it career suicide, because it felt really big to me at the time to step away from something that I've always known.
Yeah.
And the other thing is look, the pandemic's definitely changed this, but to move to somewhere that's regional when you've lived in a capital city all of your life, and then to go and find a job there, and there's only one university here.
Yeah.
and nobody goes, nobody leaves those jobs because they're such good jobs. It felt really big to me, because I thought, well, what am I going to kind of do now?
That is such a big thing. And I think, just for a moment, I'm sure that many of our listeners would agree. It can feel scary. You've created this career, you've got a profession that is your identity. And I certainly put off and delayed having kids because I was worried, well, what's going to happen? If I leave my job and someone else does it, then, what am I coming back to? Will I be able to get back in? Will I, lose? I think there's a lot of fear around it, and you don't have to look far to hear stories as well. And you might have seen other colleagues who went away and didn't come back, or there's a lot worse stories out there. So it's a hard one, because I don't want women to feel that way. But, the fact of the matter is, in a lot of companies, it is still, we're not in a place in society where people are welcoming mums back into the workforce and at the same place and level that they were before. It's like it's almost expected that you're going to take a demotion or a lesser role because, we can't expect you to have the same brain that you had before for some reason. Now that you're a mum, you must have to do something that's easier or simpler. And it's a huge thing, I think, to crack through. So I think this is really common that we've both felt that way, that it was like career suicide to go off and have a baby. And then, like you say as well, moving to a regional centre, I think anywhere where you're not in a capital city, it's scary to think, well, what are the job prospects? Am I going to be able to get this type of job again? Coming from marketing background as well, it's always a head office type of role. So you've got to be where the head offices are. And when I came back from London, I said to my husband, we have to live in Brisbane. Like, that's sort of the minimum, like ideally Sydney or Melbourne, but we wanted to live in Queensland. So I was like, well, we have to live in Brisbane because there's just not going to be the jobs on the coast. So yeah, it's so interesting, because obviously pre-COVID, that was very, very real. And now that we're all working from home, that's probably a lot less of an issue, which is fantastic. And I hope that this stays. But so continue on, because I think, I just wanted to talk about that for a moment. I think it's a really important, story to share, that, if you're not alone when you're thinking like that. There's lots of women who do feel like, holding off to have a baby because you want to get to a place where you think you're secure enough to take that time off. But I just have to say that there is no such time. Do it when it's right for you, and, not to be afraid of it, because there are so many opportunities, and there's more opportunities than what we think. It's just about being bold about going for them. So you moved states
Yes.
to Queensland with a brand new baby. And yes, so what happened next?
So I actually then did get a job at the local university doing what I was doing before I left Sydney, promoting the research. And the manager there at one point, and, it's, I suppose, losing a child, then moving states, and then looking after this baby was a lot. And I think I just lost so much confidence in myself and my ability. And he said to me, at one point, are you sure you've done this before? And I think about that. I held on to that for quite a while.
Yeah.
And I thought, this isn't for me then. Like, I obviously, all that, I didn't sit there and think, oh, well, I've had all this career before that, and this is one person just saying this remark to me. I thought that one person was, and saying that comment was so huge to me. And I just thought, well, obviously I don't. And that's when your imposter syndrome kicks in. And, like, I'd already had that throughout my career anyway. And I just thought, well, this means what's come before means nothing. Like, I really don't know what I'm doing. I've had a baby and everything's gone, like magic, like, but that was the wrong way to think about it. Like I said, I did hold on to it for a long time, but I shouldn't have let that comment really define what I was as a person or what my career that had come before. But it was tough to hear. But then it kind of led me on a journey. And I think that there's a lot to be said about going through the hard, like learning from the hard things. And that's exactly what happened to me. So after that experience, I then started working something completely different. So it was like we've got markets up here on the Sunshine Coast, Monday markets. And I just started working in the shop there, a little shop there. And I'd sew because that was what I'd loved doing. I'd sewed since I was 16. So I'd make some of the accessories for the shop, and then, I'd work and sort out the production side of things because we had a group of sewers working for us. And that's when other people the owner realised that I had all these other skills. But, I was just going there doing something completely different because I think I felt so burnt by what happened that I was never going to be back to that, going back to what I was before having a baby, and all of this knowledge that I had, that I had a degree and a postgraduate degree, and all of a sudden it felt like it was worth nothing. The thing was, I did have those skills still. And I was just really fortunate that the next few things that I went along, every job, people realised that I did have these skills, and I just started building websites for people, doing their social media, marketing, and it really kind of pulled me back. Like, I never went into a business and said, oh, this is what I can do, and started marketing to those people. It was other people that did it, like, for me, that really believed in me. And, I think that if it wasn't for those people, I wouldn't be where today. Actually, I know it wouldn't. If it wasn't for those people, I wouldn't be where I am today. They gave me the confidence when I didn't have any myself.
That's incredible. Imagine that everything that you'd built up and done was worthless, and you've gone into some place where you kind of felt a bit comfortable because you love sewing, and you could apply those skills, which obviously had nothing to do with your professional training at all. So it's interesting that you kind of gravitated to that, but then it's still there, like you say. And this is probably part of that healing process, was what was happening in building your confidence back up from people discovering what you could do, and you doing things and having those successes for them. So what happened next? So you were still working at the shop at that point?
Yeah, so then the business got sold to somebody else, and then she then acquired another business, a clinic, a natural health clinic. And that's where I started doing a bit of reception work and marketing. I did that. I was lucky because also living in a regional centre, you can spend time there's more emphasis on it. So if I would have been in Sydney, I would have been back working full time. And my child would have been in care all the time. And there's nothing wrong with that, because that's what I thought would be happen. I would have done as well.
Yeah.
And that's what the choice is sometimes when you live in a capital city. But I actually got time to spend with my son. So I did it within school hours, and it was great. And then that's when people would refer me to other people. And it was really lovely because I got to make a lot of connections. There's a big kind of natural health movement on the Sunshine Coast, which is great. And all those people really kind of believed in me and backed me, and then referred me to other people. And that's kind of how it happened. I spent a lot of time in kind of stretch mode, relearning, like learning new things. So a lot of like get a website going, like a WordPress website going. I'd always been technically savvy anyway, but it was great because I just spent so much time growing and learning from that at my own pace. So that was really, I'm really grateful that I could do that. and then still spend time with my son.
Yeah, definitely. And so at what point did it become a business? You took that step into, okay, this looks like this is the time and you're going to go down the path of entrepreneurship.
So entrepreneurship, like I said, does not come naturally to me. I like to call myself the nonpreneur. But when March 2020, when COVID happened, I decided to take the leap and work for myself 100% of the time. Mm-hmm. So before that, I'd done a mixture of both, so probably 50-50. And then I just kind of transitioned. It's just I think sometimes you just need to make a choice and then the rest will follow. And I always like to say to myself, everything will work out. It always does. I thought COVID happened. I thought, yep, I'm going to be a little bit quiet. I can work on my business. I can build it. I signed up to do an SEO course because I thought, I've always wanted to kind of have to learn that. And then I got really busy. So while most people were making sourdough and knitting, I was working. I got really busy. So I think it was September that year I'd closed my books. It was quite quick.
Yeah.
And I feel kind of like I'm still in 2020 in a way. It hasn't kind of stopped for me. So I'm really lucky that I've been able to keep the momentum and be busy. So it was COVID. And I think a lot of things changed for people with COVID. I think there was a lot of a stepping off point. But yeah, for me, it was that made the decision, and been a big learning curve ever since.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that's a good couple of years ago now. So, for someone who you'd call a nonpreneur, it sounds like, well, you started your own business, you got very busy, closed your books, still going strong 2 years later. And, what would you say in terms of the biggest lessons that you've learnt along this journey that you think, looking back, you're like, wow, that was actually what's led you to where you are today? And even though you're not an entrepreneurial spirit, clearly you've got what it takes to run a successful business. So
look, I think it's the stories that you tell yourself. I think you tell yourself really, and I know that you talk about limiting beliefs a lot, and that's something that really resonates with me, because I've always told myself I'm an employee. When I was brought up, really it was no really other kind of thing except to go to university, and you go and study, and then you go and work for somebody, and then that's what you do. There wasn't really, I know in some families there's that entrepreneurial spirit that's kind of born and bred, but that wasn't me. It's taken a lot for me to kind of come to that, but the process has been that it's just those people that have kind of given me the confidence and spurred me on to do it. But yeah, COVID, I think I just needed something to go, okay, well, this is it, and it's time to make a decision, and you got to just jump. And that's what it was for me. I suppose I've always been a really highly organised person. I was always really interested in business. I've helped a lot of people with their own. So for me, I suppose it's applying those things and then using them myself to kind of make that happen for me. I always like to put somebody else front, and I think that's where I naturally kind of fall. And maybe that may change one day, but this is my natural thing, is to be the magic behind the scenes.
Totally understand that. That's the marketer's hat, right? Like the puppet master pulling all the strings and making it all happen, but nobody ever sees us sitting behind the scenes. Yeah,
this is me, my personal life too. Like I'm that person as well. So it's a natural position for me to be in.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, rewriting your career story, like what do you think the new story is, or how have you rewritten it?
Like I said, it was really the people that believed in me that kind of spurred me on to where I am. And I did start out mostly doing websites for people. And a lot of that a couple of years ago, I stopped offering new builds. But what's really kind of that writing background and those skills that I did have, so they didn't go all the way. They didn't all just magically disappear when I had a baby.
Yeah.
Like I think society tells you happens. They were always there. It's just for me, it's come back kind of full circle back into that comms and writing. I do a lot of social media and that kind of thing. So for me, I think that that's a natural kind of ability to kind of stay on message and have that brand story and keep that flowing. I am really good at pulling out the story from everybody else, but for my own story, not so much. Those writing skills and the communication skills have been what has made my career kind of come back full circle again, but just applied in a different way. I remember when I was working in corporate, Facebook wasn't really a thing. And to think that it's something where I spend a fair bit of my work time and getting paid to do is kind of blows my mind when I think about it. But it's the way it changes. And, I think women in particular are really good at adapting. And that's exactly what I've done, is just adapted my skills into the online world.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember a conversation that we had a little while ago where you had mentioned, like leaving the job and then starting a business, you felt like you were starting everything from scratch.
Yeah.
That you've got to start at the bottom and work your way up, that you're a newbie, that everything's brand new. What I'm loving hearing today is actually you're recognizing that you weren't starting from scratch, that you had all these skills from your previous job. And although your business is new and you're doing something new, you're not a newbie. You're just applying those skills that you've got in a different way and creating a business out of it, which is such an incredible story. Like for somebody who, maybe you've got to rewrite your own story now that you're not a nonpreneur. Actually, you've created a business that's successful, that's still going a couple of years later. And what a great story to be able to tell your son when he's older as well.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because I see that spirit, entrepreneurial spirit in him. So I don't know if it kind of skipped me, or maybe I have passed along some of that, what I've picked up. But he's been making and selling a few things at schools. So, which I love. I think it's really great. So yeah, maybe that is true. And maybe I have kind of rewritten my thoughts on that. Being able to work and have flexibility is now what I demand. So going back to a 9-to-5 job is not something that, look, and I think really the world's changed on that. We can now work from wherever. A lot of people can work from wherever. I think we need to probably be better and have more conversations about demanding flexibility, even if we have children. I don't think it's going to change, and it's definitely come a long way. But for me, I that's what I demand, and that's what I need, and I think that's we need to be confident in asking for that.
Absolutely. It comes back to so much bigger than just what you're doing now today. It's actually your life, and recognizing that you wanted to have that time to spend with your son. You think, well, you've only got that one time, so if it's gone, you can't get it back again. You can always make a change now and look forwards, but whatever's happened in the past is gone. So it's like, let's look at that opportunity that we've got and make the most of what we can do today to, really have the life that we want to be living. And sometimes you just got to take the ball into your own hands, don't you? Like, make those decisions. So what would you say to your past self, who throughout the journey, you've obviously had some big moments, some scary moments where you're probably like, oh my God, what am I doing? How am I ever going to get a job again? When that boss said to you, have you ever done this before? Like, what a crushing moment to experience. What would you say to your past self now?
Don't let one person's comments, because you don't know what people are going through too. Don't let that define who you are or what your experience is, or your own self-worth. I have gone on to do a lot of work around self-worth. I recognised it was an issue for me. And really, at the end of the day, regardless of whether he said that or not, it really shouldn't have been as impactful as what it was on me. But then, like I said, it did lead me still back to the same thing. And I am incredibly proud of what I've achieved in a short amount of time. It's all kind of worked and kind of made me what I am today, but I don't really think about what he says anymore. I'm confident in my own ability and I'm learning all the time. I think everybody is. But yeah, I would definitely tell myself not to put too much weight in what one person says.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's something that we could all take, you know, whether it's being at the time where you tried to come back from maternity leave to a company who had, for some reason, lost faith in you, offering you a lesser role, or whatever your own story might have been. You know, I think we need to put some distance between that scenario and situation and between ourselves, because often that's actually just their own limitations, their own limiting view and perspective, and absolutely nothing to do with your performance, your skills, or your abilities. When we hear that, I think if we could all try to take some distance between it and think, well, that's okay. If that's what they think, that doesn't mean it's what everybody thinks. That's just one opinion. That's definitely something that I'm going to be hopefully coaching my children on, to not let someone else's small-minded view play a big part in their lives, because it's
exactly.
Just,
yeah. And that's what we say to our children, but we're not great at telling that to ourselves, but they only learn by seeing us do it. So, you know, going back to talking about, you know, my son who's got this entrepreneurial spirit, well, obviously there's some of it's rubbed off onto him, because he's obviously sees what I do and he knows that, you know, that's possible for him too. Like, I think we need to be better at telling ourselves that, yeah, we've got this and it'll all kind of work out. And yeah,
absolutely.
Those things don't just go away. Those skills that we have don't just go away.
No, they don't. They're still there, and you know, we can choose to unearth them, leverage them, use them or not. But that's a choice I think that all of us have. And actually, you know, we've got to be our number one fan, don't we? Believe in ourselves and do it. I know it sounds easy, and I'm saying this with a lot of compassion, because I experienced a similar thing where my confidence got shattered after leaving my job and coming back after having a baby. And again, I let other people's small-minded perspectives really influence how I saw myself and what I thought about myself and my abilities. It just didn't feel right though. And I guess, I fought against it. I wasn't ready to accept that. But it's hard to pull the pieces back together when you start doubting, because we're very receptive to other people. I think especially women, we're usually quite open with our energy and we're very in tune with what other people think and feel, and it hurts, I think, to have a negative opinion like that. So thank you so much for sharing your story with us. Is there any final words that you want to tell us before we sign off today?
I think having a community around you of like-minded, it might be men or women, whatever you choose, to really kind of connect with, I think is important, especially with online businesses as well. If you've got that community, or if you've got those people that you can reach out to, makes all the difference. So I think that when we come across these things, or somebody says a comment, or there's something on social media where somebody says something, because that's bound to happen in this kind of online world, it's just good to have people around you to say, you've got this, we know who you are. And I think that that's really important. Yeah,
that's such a good point. And, I just see it so often as well when we start a business and we're working from home, you're on your own. And, even though you're not maybe alone in your house, it's different because whoever's in your house you're not working with. What happens is we internalize the thoughts. And when they're in your head, they go round and round, they get noisy, they get distorted, they can derail you, they can help you procrastinate, and doubt and fear rise. Everybody has them. And I completely agree that, one of the biggest things that changed for me was when I decided to join a coaching group of other people doing a similar kind of business as me at a similar level, to have that place where I could share, where I could reach out, I didn't know what the answer was that I wanted, but just to be able to take it out of your head. I think, get things out of your head and stop it whirring around. And often it can be really fast changes that you see happen. And I see the same thing with my clients in Business Jam and definitely in the Momentum Club because we have a lot more sort of mastermind style sessions in the Momentum Club. When it's in your head, it seems really big and complicated, and actually just being able to voice it, get it out of your mouth into a place where people understand and hold space for you and listen, that is so incredibly powerful. And it's so simple. Whatever stage you're at, I just completely encourage you to have some form of coaching. Generally, it works really well where there is a coach and it's not just a sort of a peer group, but just because you can get to a deeper level with it. But it has been so transformative, I think, for me and certainly for so many of my clients. And, you see the huge changes that happens when something that seems so big can get broken down into something actionable, simple, and it stops your head whirring around. So yeah, I think that is such a great tip to find that support. Like what does that support look like for you? What's that supportive community? And to be a place where you can openly share, where you're not, like being in a Facebook group is not going to be enough. You need to actually have personal connection with people. So it'd be some kind of group coaching environment. It can be on Zoom, like it all happens. My one, people are international. So it happens online. It doesn't have to be face to face, but you're so right. That is a huge benefit.
And the other thing is too, you don't need to know how to be or how to really run a business so much. That's what other people are for, to help you. And you can get there a lot quicker if you get the help or the advice that you need. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah. Avoiding all the trial and error.
Exactly.
I've been there before.
Seems like a no-brainer, doesn't it? So
yeah. The amount of times I think, putting my hand up saying definitely can be an overthinker at times. And I remember taking about 8 months to decide on a platform for when I launched Business Jam. And then not even a year later, I changed platforms. So I should not have held back for 8 months trying to pick the perfect one, because there was no way to find out what was the perfect one except just choosing one and doing it and learning from the experience. I think I found the right one second time round. Hopefully I don't have to change it again. But, it's like it's not the end of the world to change things. So, sometimes we turn these decisions into these big, huge barriers that really stop progress, and they don't need to be. And this is where having a forum where you can talk to other people and get their insights and views and maybe a bit of coaching to help you make that decision is what keeps you moving forward faster, I think, than if you're trying to go alone.
Exactly.
That's what I found. Yeah. That is awesome. Thank you so much, Kristy. This has been a really great chat. Thank you for sharing your story, the career to entrepreneur or accidental entrepreneur, because it happened, and then rewriting your career story. Such a powerful story to share with us.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Have you ever noticed that those who are perceived with authority in their area of expertise have a much easier time building an audience, making sales, and their business growth just seems almost effortless, right? Well, it's not about how much time they've been in business, how much experience they've got, or even their qualifications. Those things are not what creates authority. The one thing that does create authority is how well they've defined their specialization, aka their expertise or their niche. So if you're looking to have more visibility in your business, then you'll be very pleased to know that I'm hosting a live workshop for my Know Your Niche program members on the 6th of May. And it's all about how you can get really defined in your area of expertise so that you can create authority to be seen, to be visible online, to be able to build your audience and make those sales of premium clients too. Now, this live workshop is happening on the 6th of May. So if you join me before the 4th of May, then you're going to get this $297 program for only $127 when you join me before the 4th of May. Yes, you can join afterwards, and yes, there will be replays. But if you want to maximize this opportunity, then I recommend getting into Know Your Niche, doing the online program ahead of the live workshop, and then coming to the workshop to get my help, my feedback, and some coaching to really help you nail it, so that anybody else who looks at what it is that you do can clearly understand your area of expertise, what makes you different, and how you're going to stand out from the crowd. So head over to jessicaosborne.com/niche and get yourself enrolled in my Know Your Niche online program with the live workshop. And I'll see you on this 6th of May. Now, make sure you get in before the 4th so that you can get that special price of $127, down from usually $297. So it's an absolute bargain, and it's very well worth an hour or two of your time in getting clear on your specialization so that you can be bringing in those clients and making a much bigger return from any effort that you're putting into marketing your business. Once again, head over to jessicaosborne.com/niche and enroll in Know Your Niche today.